Hi everyone. It's been a bit since I made a video, but that's because I just haven't had a lot on my mind recently. Um, I'll probably be uploading more since college is about to start again for me, and I'll probably have more in my mind. Um, but we'll see. Anyways, I kind of wanted to expand upon my opinions with suicide, which I talked about in my OCD video, and I'll be going beyond that and also talking about assisted suicide. So my position is I'm not against all assisted suicide. I support assisted suicide for people facing terminal illnesses. I understand why people facing unbearable pain want the option for assisted suicide, and I recognize the emotional and financial burdens that come with, terminal illness and how, assisted suicide can help mitigate that. Although that option is less of a reason for assisted suicide, in my opinion. I think that's more of just a failure on our current medical system. But again, I understand the reasons people want assisted suicide for terminal illness, and it's because of, again, the unbearable pain that continues to increase each day for an uncurable illness or disease. Uh, Something that someone's just going to die of anyways, no matter what, and they're choosing to essentially die with dignity. So I understand that. But where I draw the line is where the direction is moving nowadays. I see there's an increase in popularity in wanting assisted suicide and mental illnesses. A lot of countries are doing this now. A lot of European countries are doing it or are going to do it, like Switzerland and Spain and Belgium and the Netherlands. And then we've got Canada, who is going to be taking that into effect as of either this year or next year. And I draw the line there. These countries that permit it for some psychiatric reasons, I think that's an immoral thing to do, and I'll explain that a bit further soon. Um, why I think expanding into mental illness is wrong. But first, before I do that, this will kind of lead into that, and it's about more of a little bit of what I'll be sharing a little bit of what I talked about in my OCD video here. Um, it's about where I was about a year ago, and essentially a year ago, I had been at the worst point of my life with OCD, and I decided that I think I'm just gonna kill myself because I was experiencing like a lot of unbearable pain from it. I didn't feel like anything was going to get better. I thought that I should die. My life wasn't worth living anymore, and I just didn't want to live anymore either. I felt it was too much of a pain to wake up every single day. So, yeah, I essentially believed that there was no hope for me, and I had planned on killing myself one night, but I didn't do it because of I had at that point experienced a text from a friend right before, and I pretty much took it as a sign from God not to kill myself. And I talk more about that in my OCD video. So if you want to see everything that I relating to that, then you can watch that video that I made. But because of that, I went to an OCD in treatment center, or to treat my an inpatient OCD center to treat my OCD, and it had mitigated a lot of my symptoms and changed the way that I look at life. Um, it completely changed my perspective on a lot in life, and I'm now at a point where I'm happy to say that I no longer wish to die, and I feel happy to be alive, and I'm so grateful that I didn't kill myself back then. But that brings me into the point of why mental illness is a lot different from terminal illness. So something like terminal illness um, and mental illness, they're just not the same. They're very different. Terminal illness, death, it's terminal. Death is inevitable. Treatment's not going to stop the disease. It can kind of slow it, but suffering will be there and it will continue to increase as time goes on. But with mental illness, that is not a terminal illness. Mental illnesses often distort your perception of reality and cause you to lose hope that you basically lose hope that recovery is possible. You don't believe that recovery is possible, even though it totally is possible. And it makes you believe that what you're experiencing is terminal. Treatment doesn't work immediately for it, and people will take that as a sign that recovery isn't possible as well. But people who do recover, which is typically after months to years, will tell you that they're so glad that they took all that effort and time to get help, and they are now happy to say that, that they didn't choose to take their life, and they that's something that they want to be able to take back, and they are very glad that they never did that. Um, so, suicide and or mental illness and um, terminal illness, they're very different because of that. So, my biggest fear with this rise in popularity with assisted suicide is that the belief that mental illness is a reason to use assisted suicide. I'm afraid that uh, people will start that belief will become more popular as well, gain even more popularity, and will become legal in the states. I'm concerned that we are creating a system that tells people that experiencing treatable suffering, that death is an acceptable solution to that. And you know, if I had been encouraged to view death as a treatable, as a sort of treatment for my OCD and depression and all of that, I would have a year ago killed myself. Like if it was available to me, assisted suicide for mental illness last year, I would have used that. And I know there are a lot of other people who would do that too. And I find it to be very gross that there are countries and doctors, especially, that will talk to somebody in this distorted sense of their life, a distorted time in their life with whatever they're facing. But let's just say, they're facing a lot of, you know, dark emotions, with mental illness. They're have a distorted perception of reality and what's going on, and doctors will tell them, that this is an option. You can take assisted suicide, because people who are in that position will take that a lot of the time. I would have taken that. And I don't think that we should be telling people that it's just that's a treatment for this. I don't think we should be doing that at all. So one other thing I wanted to get into also was this goes more into suicide, less about assisted suicide and more just suicide in general. Is this is kind of a nuanced, take here, but because it's such a nuanced, it's a very nuanced, very delicate thing, I guess, suicide. So you'll hear people argue about this, about whether or not something like suicide is selfish, and I kind of want to give my opinion as somebody who had been suicidal and who had planned on killing myself. So I think from like a definitional level, like a technical level, suicide is a selfish act, but it is a lot more complicated than what people make it out to be. Because there's two sides to it, of course. There's the person, and then there is, the consequences of the action that person will take. So on one hand, you have a person who, they have autonomy over their actions they take. Nobody else can decide for them what to do with themselves. So if somebody takes the choice to kill themselves, nobody else can really decide for them that, what is or is not best for them. They don't know what they're going through, and I understand the overwhelming pain that causes someone to take the decision. It's driven by the fact that there is a loss of hope, there is a loss of feeling that the life is worth living. There's feelings of, deserving to die that cross the mind, and it makes suicide seem like an appealing option. The pain, the suffering will be ended. People won't have to deal with me anymore. if, they're facing thoughts that make them feel like people are negatively impacted by them, um, and they essentially, they'll end up taking their life because of that. And I think it's more in the fact that, it, it does affect that person most of all. The person who, takes their own life more than anybody, because that's something you can't take back. It's ending your own life. Everything, that you have there is gone. It's your only life, and you're the biggest victim of it. But it's also everybody else is a victim too. Your friends and your family are huge victims of that. They will have lifelong grief from this. There will often be, questions that they ask themselves, like, what could I have done to stop this? Is this my fault? And it ends up hurting more than just the person who ends up killing themselves. It hurts everyone they know. And, suicide isn't something that is motivated by cruelty or maliciousness. It's something that's motivated by an overwhelming amount of pain. And so I understand the opinion, or I guess the decision that someone would take to end their life, because, at a certain point, I know for some people, they feel their life just isn't worth living anymore, and the pain isn't worth taking anymore. But tons of people end up being affected besides that person, and it ends up harming them too. So it's a very nuanced thing, suicide. It's a very delicate, nuanced thing, because it's not just the person whose life is being taken who's affected by it. Yes, they are affected by it most as they are dying, but other people now have to live with a lifelong suffering of grief from that death. And so in those ways, it is selfish, but in other ways, I mean, it's it's a very great topic. In those ways, it is a selfish thing, but in other ways, it's kind of like it's understandable that somebody would take that route or position, because of all of the, again, the overwhelming feelings and emotions that they're feeling that are distorting their perception of reality and causing them to feel the way that they feel. It's something that I deeply sympathize with, as I used to have. I used to be in that position. But again, I don't think the solution is to blame people for, or I just demonize people who end up doing this. I think it's who end up, committing suicide. I know as society has progressed, people have, especially, a lot of religious figures have taken a more nuanced stance on it and have felt more sympathetic towards it. But it's important to understand that we live in a very gray world, and there are a lot of gray things in it, and suicide is another one of those gray actions, because of the amount of people who are affected by it. But yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on, so for one, suicide, I think it's a very sad thing that people feel the need to action take to end the suffering they're going through. And in ways, yeah, again, I'll reiterate, on a technical level, I'd say it makes sense that it fulfilled the definition of selfish. But even if it is selfish, I can understand why someone would take that position. We do a lot of things in our life that are selfish. We do a lot of things for ourselves, and it's not always wrong to think of yourself first. But again, I think it's just overwhelmingly, not worth it because of how many people it affects. And then, besides from that, assisted suicide, I think it is understandable and acceptable to legalize it when we are thinking of in terms of terminal illness and wanting to end their life with dignity. But I think with mental illness, it is unacceptable, and I do honestly feel pretty disgusted by the idea that there are people who will take advantage of somebody in a dark state of mind and allow them, or even persuade them to end up killing themselves instead of trying to fight to save their life. But yeah, these are just kind of like my ramblings about it. I've written a few notes on this, and I just kind of want to get my thoughts out there and talk about this. I've got like another topic I want to talk about that's a bit more political than this, so we'll see if I end up making that video. But yeah, that's about it. So I guess we'll do the song of the day. So I will go with Coma by the Hawkeye Band. That's a pretty good song. All right, that's about it.